So let's create something under the chassis here so it doesn't look so empty. We can have a look at the pictures and we see that there's some kind of frame going on here. And let's look at some of the other pictures and see if we can get some inspiration. Here you have a lot of stuff here. You can of course play with making all kinds of different shapes under there. It's the more things you have there, like small boxes and stuff, the more real it will look. It's just a matter how much time you want to put into it. And if you have, of course, if you have a specific car you're working on, you want to have it look realistic, of course. Here, just take a little bit from here and there to more show the process rather than making something exact. This is also, as far as I know, just an imaginary car as well, so yeah, let's just make a frame like this. So what we'll do is we will activate the chassis, so we're working on the same body because this will be integrated. We don't need to print separate parts. I will show you something that you can do to make sure that the bogies and the wheels will not collide with something you put under here. There is a method you can use. So we deselect the visibility of the track so that we can look at the bogies. And what we'll do now is we can do two things. First, let's make sure we have orthographic view because we don't want a perspective distortion here. We can actually start right in the sketch here. We select the underside of the chassis and we click create new sketch, and I want to work in that orientation. So how do we make sure the wheels are not colliding? We can click C for circle, or you have it up here under sketch. You have circle here, and you see the one where is this a C? That's the one I usually use as a center diameter circle. And we click here in the middle where the screw is, then later attaches the bogie. And now we can draw a line out to the edge of the wheel. Now we can actually unclick the chassis body here so we see what's going on. What we're actually doing now is with this circle we can project where the bogie will go, where the wheels will be when it's turning. But we also have to keep in mind that the bogie can also tilt, so we cannot be sure that it's exact on the millimeter. So we'll draw the circle a little bit bigger so we have some margin, or something like that. So and yeah, let's see. I click D again for dimension, and I click the line, and let's enter 70 there, and let's create one more for the other one, also 70. And these are not something that we're gonna extrude or do something with, just for visual reference. So we will click construction for them. Now these are our boundaries. We cannot go any further with something we place here than these lines. So if we place them outside these lines, we will be sure that the bogies will not collide. So what we'll do now is we will create our frames, and let's just improvise a bit here. Now all these edges you can see here, that is actually the roof messing with us, so we will unselect the roof because we don't want this to be referenced to the roof. They have nothing to do with each other. So let's see. Yeah, let's just put the rectangle here. So I click R on the keyboard, and then I select 2 points. I don't select any specific measurement here. Now you have to click escape every time when you've used a tool. I don't know if I said that before, but to be able to do something else you need to click escape, because that's deselect the tool, so now you can click on edges and so on. So let's put some dimensions in. Let's also unclick the body so we don't have the body messing with us, and we also have the window frames there. Let's unclick them as well, so it's clean to work on. So how far in do we want it? Yeah, let's put it 6 mm. We don't want it out at the edge, we don't want it a bit inside. So the length, let's see here, let's click D and see how far we have it from the edge of the chassis. 70, let's make it the same. You could also reference it to the center of the bogie if you want to. Then, especially if you have something that it has different length of the chassis, maybe you want it to have the same distance to the bogie instead of the edge, so that's possible also. It's just if I remove this, I click D for dimension, and I click the center there instead, 33 mm. So that can also be a reference point. But mine is symmetrical now, so I'll use the edge of the chassis. So 6 mm, 77. Also, we need the thickness of this thing. 2 mm. No, let's make it 3 mm. We want to have some material there. We don't want it to be too fragile. So let's make another rectangle. Or no, let's just make a mirror of it later. We'll do one first and then we'll mirror it. So now we're going to extrude this. So let's look from the side view and see how far down we want this frame to go. We don't want it to go too far down if we have a slope or something. We don't want it to collide. But yeah, 10 is a little bit too small, but 15 was a bit too much, so 13 maybe. We can of course light up the body and the roof and see how they look combined. Yeah, now it looks differently. Now it actually looks too big. 12 mm looks okay, I think. Let's make it that. And also note that I created a new body now. It's not connected to the chassis because I didn't have it visible. But I will make a mirror of it, so I will finish it first and then make a mirror, and then I will combine the bodies. So let's see. Let's taper the angles here, or make with a chamfer tool. Now when you use equal distances, it's just 45 degrees, and we'll use that for now. Let's have a look at the pictures here and see. It looks like 45. It's probably a bit more than 45, but never mind. 45 is good enough. So there we have our starting point, and then we will create some holes in it to make some kind of structure. So let's create an offset from the edge we have here. I select the three lines and I click O for offset. And let's make it 2 mm. And now we need some support here as well. Let's look at the picture again. We have like 6 of them there with some weird angles. I'm not sure if I like the angles there, but let's see. Yeah, yeah. Let's put some angles there. Why not? Now I just drew these um, with no dimensions or anything, just connecting them to the lines. And now if I select both of them, and I can make them parallel, and I can enter an angle by clicking D for dimension, and then clicking one of the lines, and then the horizontal line. Fusion will think that I want to enter an angle, which I want in this case. So 65 sound, it looks pretty good, so let's keep that. And also now I can also change the width between these two, so 2 millimeters. And I will do the same thing here. I will not mirror this because, as you might remember, I don't have the center point in the center of the car, so they will end up in the wrong place if I use mirror tool here. But it's not too much of a details here, so I will just sketch them. D for dimension and 2 millimeter, and we will enter the angle 65 degrees. There we go. And we want at least 2 more of them. Let's put something here. Now you can see the Fusion sometimes understand that you want parallel lines, but it's not always it understands. You see when these small lines light up, you can see now it's not, but now it is. So it's not always consistent. Probably depends on how many other references there are nearby. Here is kind of clean, so Fusion understands what we want to do. So let's put the same angles. And also now we want to know how far we are from some reference point. We'll take the edge and let's choose 50. Let's do the same thing here. There we go. Now we have some kind of structure going on here. So let's extrude and see what we get. And also, first of all, let's see if we can select the areas. Yeah, that was possible. And we take the arrow and we pull it inside, so Fusion understands we want to cut, and we also make sure that it's only the body we're working on now that we want to cut. So there we go. Yeah, that's okay. Now we can make a mirror of it. So we choose the mirror tool, and we make sure we only have body selected, and we select the body, and we choose the mirror plane, which is the side plane there. There we go. And now we can just light up everything and see if it looks like we want to. It should be black. And maybe it's actually extending a little bit too far down. Actually, it's a bit too big in my mind. Let's roll history marker back here and work a little bit more on the sketch. Um, let's see where we have the dimension. Oh, that was wrong, that was wrong. It's this sketch we need. No, I didn't sketch the how far down it would go. I extruded it, so this is the thing I need to change. So how far should we have it? Let's try 10 and see how that looks. Now you can see we'll get an error here, and that's because the chamfer has a too big value. We cannot chamfer further than the edge. So, but it's just to double click on the feature that gets red and adjust it. But this is why it's a good thing to roll the history marker back and not just click on a feature, because then Fusion, if you just click on a feature down in the history, Fusion will try to automatically fix everything after that in the timeline. And if you change something with a lot of references, you will get a lot of errors. So, and it will take a lot of time if it's something complex. So first start by rolling the history marker, and then you take one feature at a time. So now we go to the sketch here to see if it still looks okay. And yeah, because I referenced the side and I made an offset, that means that Fusion has automatically corrected the sketch. Now you can see it still has the same geometry, and it still looks okay even though I've made it smaller. So that's okay. So we can move forward with the extrude. Yeah, that's okay too. And the mirror. And then we zoom out and we have a look at it again and see if it looks okay. It kind of looks okay. I think the color is a problem. So let's make it black. Now it's it sort of pops out. That's because of the color. Yeah, that looks better. Now it's not taking so much of the looks of it. But it's still a bit empty. It's still a bit empty there. So let's create some boxes and stuff under here. Let's just improvise something. So first, make sure you select the activate the chassis, and we'll create a new sketch. And we can actually light up the sketch we did where we have the reference of the bogies. Let's see which one it is. There it is. Because then we have these markings here to see where we're not supposed to put anything. Oh, now you see all these blue edges that light up. That's actually the roof that is Fusion is trying to figure out if we want to place a reference there, and we don't. So we unclick the roof. Now we don't get all these edges. So now there is one thing you could do here. You could actually make a box to fit batteries for lights if you want to. So we could actually do that. Let's create quite a big box. 60 millimeter. Let's see how long a AAA battery is. I have no idea in just by heart how big they are. Let's see if we have a drawing. Yeah, here we have AAA. It's 44 long, 10 wide. Yeah, so 60 is good enough. So let's make this a potential battery box if you want to put lights and stuff. So let's see. D for dimension, and we'll place it 12 millimeter in from the side, and 12 here as well. 60 long, and it's not important where it is. We'll just place a reference here just for the sake of it. And we could of course place it in the middle. I will place it asymmetrically here because I will place some other stuff here. It will make it a little bit more realistic. And now let's see. Our sketch was actually placed. No, it was placed right. Oh. For some weird reason, it wanted to select the whole. Yeah, now I understand. It's because we have this old sketch highlighted. Then Fusion gets a bit confused what surface we want to extrude. So now if we click E for extrude or click here the button, you can see that it's highlighted now when I clicked E. We'll select that one and we'll see how far we will extrude it. Yeah, I will not extrude it further than this. Oh, yeah, let's make it 11. Now we have our battery box here, and let's make a room for the batteries inside it. So I click the surface and I click create a new sketch, and I double click on the edge and click O for offset. You should be a bit familiar with that now. And 60, well, maybe 1 millimeter is enough. No, we'll make it 2 millimeters. So it's a thick wall, so it'll be strong. As we made it 60 millimeter long, it'll still be enough for AAA batteries or some small lipo cell or something. So let's extrude that, and now there's a neat thing here because we want to extrude this down to the undersurface of the chassis, and we can just click the arrow and click the surface, and it will cut all the way down there. So now we have a battery box here, a battery compartment, and I will actually make it a little bit further down because the chassis is 2 millimeter thick, and I don't need that, so I will add an extra millimeter in on the battery box inside. It will cut 1 millimeter more from the chassis, but that's okay. Now we have 12 millimeters, so for the battery cover here, we need that to go in a bit. So, and the AAA batteries were, if I remember right, they are 10 millimeter in diameter, a bit more than 10 millimeter. So they will fit inside here with no problem. That means our chassis will be a little bit thinner here, but that's no problem because we have these walls and we have this structure, and also when you glue it to the body it will be super strong, so there's no need for thicker material there. So now we have a battery box, and well, let's make something more here so it looks a bit crowded. Let's just draw some erratic rectangles here. And E for extrude, and just extrude them. This is just plain improvising. Like that. And are we inside the safe zone here? Let's see. Let's see. I did not have the sketch highlighted. Yeah, we're safe. We're safe. So we need a cover for the battery box, and now actually when we did the inside, we extruded it a bit further down. We took away a bit of the chassis plate. We can actually make this a little bit shallower. We don't want it to extend too much, so we remove a millimeter there. We'll have enough anyway. And you can see there that I don't always go back in the history and change something. Sometimes it's just easier to do like this. I guess it's a matter of methodology and discipline. If you want to have it really correct, of course you will have less amount of features if you don't do like this. If you go back and you edit it, but sometimes when you have a really big project, you have a lot of features. It's really time consuming to go back and always find the right one. So yeah, then it's just easier to trim like this. So let's make a cover here. Um, so let's go back just and see how it looks first. It looks okay in my mind. So let's create a new component. Let's call it battery box cover. We'll use the same principle as we did with the door frame and the window frame. And to minimize the amount of references and stuff that Fusion thinks we're gonna use, we will unclick the body and the roof, because those are the heavy parts that takes a lot of time to mess around with. So now we have the edge of the battery box selected. You can see here that I select the edge and I create a sketch. And now I double click on the inner wall and I click O for offset and I choose 0.2, and that's just it's just a tolerance to know that what we're doing now will actually go into the box, so you don't have to sand a lot. Now it may be different with your printer. If your printer is not as good, or even if it's better, maybe you want less than 0.2 millimeter there. So let's see. Now we don't want the whole inner part of the cover here to go down into the box. We only want the frame around here that holds it in place. So let's make a 1 millimeter frame here. I click it and I click extrude or E, and let's just have it 1 millimeter down. That's enough. And now the actual hatch. I click R for rectangle, and I just place it at the right out to the edge of the box, and I click extrude and I choose here, and also make sure when you're selecting now that there's not a small gap somewhere that Fusion is not choosing, because then it will not be a single part. Now we get to choose how thick our cover will be. Oh, I think 0.5 is a bit too thin, so I'll make it 1 millimeter.